Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. New neighbor is demanding I buy her groceries for her family. After that, am I the jerk for publicly humiliating my mom? And after that, can't do anything without a medical reason. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen has to buy her own groceries. That's a good one, Reddit boy. So when are you going to Whole Foods for me? So please smash that like button. And subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. New neighbor is demanding I buy her groceries for her family. We just had a woman who's in her mid-20s and her daughter who's 9 move into the apartment across the hall from us. The day that they moved in, she got on Nextdoor, Facebook Marketplace, and really any other neighborhood buy, sell, giveaway group asking for furniture, baby supplies, she's pregnant, and clothes and toys for her daughter. Her daughter went to the same summer camp as my kids, who are 9 and 11, and after she started there, they conveniently had a food drive for the disadvantaged campers. My kids have been going there since they were 3, and they've never had a food drive before. Then when school started, she got on the parents' groups and asked if anyone would be able to drive her daughter home from school and watch her for an hour until she gets home. No pay was mentioned. My husband pressured me to say yes because she's friends with our girls and she's in the same class as our younger daughter, so they can do their homework together. That hour turned into 2 and she started having dinner with us almost every night. Then the girl told my husband she doesn't think her mom is eating when she has dinner with us. That day we had a lasagna big enough to feed all of us twice and he sent the leftovers home with her. Then he started to send all of our leftovers home with her, along with clothes our daughter grew out of, toys they don't want anymore, and he started to buy extra groceries just for them. He didn't get anything expensive, just things like eggs, milk, store-brand cereal, fruits and vegetables, and sometimes meat. It started adding up to an extra $40 to $50 a week just for them. He also started helping them around the house. I eventually told him to stop sending the leftovers home with them because I take them for lunch and sometimes the kids also take them, so not having the leftovers is costing us extra money. Plus, the $40 to $50 a week should be spent on our family, not the woman across the hall. He said we can afford it and they need it much more than we do. And I said we already do more than enough for them, acting as a free daycare for her and giving her daughter dinner 5 days a week. He called me selfish, jealous, and cruel. So now I want to know if I'm the jerk. Not the jerk. And I would tell him this: when he is the one providing the free daycare, buying, as in going to the store and actually getting the extra groceries, cooking the extra food, and having to prepare the extra lunches because of no leftovers, then and only then can he call anyone else selfish. It's all fine and good for him to feel good about himself for what you are providing? Nah, he gets no credit for that morally or otherwise. OP. He does the grocery shopping and we take turns on lunches, but he doesn't think it's a big deal. He says microwaving some chicken nuggets and sticking them in a thermos isn't any different than microwaving some leftovers and putting them in the thermos. But there is a difference because now we go through chicken nuggets, bread, lunch, and meat much faster. You mentioned that he's also doing some sort of handyman things over at her place. He's defensive about providing for her. Just be wary that all his intentions are purely charitable. I gotta chime in. Something similar happened to my coworker. Her husband was friends with the neighbor's husband. Neighbor's husband passed in an accident, and husband started helping out the widow with handyman projects, lawn care, etc. 18 months later, husband comes home, says that he's in love with the widow and she's pregnant with his baby. If she's a single mother, she should be able to get food assistance and maybe even some type of assistance check. My sister is 52. My nephew is 20. They both work and get SNAP benefits. No disabilities or health problems. Not the jerk. I'm with you. You guys are already watching your kid for free and feeding her, which is super generous. The extra groceries aren't extravagant, but your kid also needs a college fund that money could be going into. How has this woman thanked you for this free service you're offering her? Has she helped out around your place or expressed extreme gratitude towards you? Has she watched your kid in return when she's available? The pressure from your husband to put food on their table seems strange. Is this in character for him? Does he often take in strays? Or is this out of character? The accusation that you're jealous seems particularly strange coming from your husband. I'd be curious if your husband is attracted to this neighbor or if there's something going on there. Who's the father of the woman's current bun in the oven? OP. She has thanked my husband. She doesn't talk to me anymore because her kid told her I don't like them, even though I never said anything about not liking them. And she baked cookies for us once and made some toys for our daughter once or twice, but that's about it. Wait, so this woman doesn't even talk to you? You watch her kid for free and she refuses to speak to you? Why does your husband think you're jealous of her? Any chance your husband is hooking up with her? OP, all communication with her is through my husband. I don't know. He calls me jealous every time I complain about him buying her groceries or helping around the apartment. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. It sounds like he's definitely using some equipment over there. Am I the jerk for publicly humiliating my mom? I'm 24, female, and I have a half-brother, Ethan, who's 17. When I was 16, our mother married her new husband and has 2 kids with him. Ethan's father isn't in his life, so he stays with them full-time, but I spend more time with my dad and his family because I just get along with them better. I love my mom, but she can be a bit much sometimes, so I rarely see her. Ethan and I text occasionally. It was my mother's birthday a few days ago, and I was visiting, and I noticed that Ethan and my newborn half-sibling weren't around. I asked my mom where they were at, and she said that she asked Ethan to check up on the baby while she took a break. We were all in the backyard, by the way, which is massive. But yeah, okay, no biggie. But some time later, I still couldn't find him, and so I went to Ethan's room, and he's rocking the baby while she's inconsolable, and he's crying too because she won't stop crying. There were diapers and baby formula everywhere, and he was saying that he tried everything, but she just won't stop. I managed to calm them both down somehow and asked Ethan why he didn't just call someone for help. He said that he's usually really good at this, and his mom makes him take care of the baby all the time, so he just panicked. He then told me that he helped out with our other half-sister when she was a baby as well, and still takes care of her too. I was really upset. I mean, yes, there's nothing wrong with needing to take a break, but Ethan's a 17-year-old. He's not the father or a mother, but apparently he takes care of our half-siblings more than our mom and stepdad? I walked up to my mom while she was talking to a group of people, and I basically told her that I can't believe she's dumping all her responsibilities onto Ethan. She knew what I was talking about immediately and told me to relax and that Ethan likes it, blah blah blah. I told her that while she was out here having a blast, her son was crying in his room because of how overwhelmed he was. She got really red and everyone went silent, which was awkward, but yeah. I later got a call from my mom saying that she respects my opinions on the situation, but that I didn't need to publicly humiliate her in front of her friends and coworkers. Apparently, her boss was there too, and he's being very cold to her. I don't know. I just can't get Ethan out of my head. Am I the jerk? You didn't humiliate her in front of people. Her own behavior humiliated her in front of people, and now she's transferring the blame to you. If she had done nothing wrong, why would she be embarrassed by what you said? Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Hate to say it, but public humiliation is a good driver for change. Mom is not God. The earth is full of bad people, and a good amount of them are moms. I would, however, suggest that you follow up with him to make sure she didn't retaliate against him. Not the jerk. Good on you for defending your half-brother. Being forced into a parental role, even if he, in part, likes it, isn't okay. He's at a point where he feels like he can't ask for help from the baby's actual parents. That is a huge problem. Calling her out in public may not have been the most kind thing to do, but it forces your mom to actually address the problem because now other people know about it. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her mom? Please let us know. You think that's bad? I would have walked right up to her, let one rip, and started barking like a chihuahua. Why does that not surprise me? Can't do anything without a medical reason. A few years ago, I worked under a terrible boss, whom I shall call Tiff. Unfortunately, I'm not exaggerating when I say terrible. She had HIPAA violations on record, writing people up for stuff that she told them to do, writing them up for things that happened when they weren't there, changing people's schedules with no notice, and then getting them in trouble when they didn't show up for the changed schedule, trying to write people up for using FMLA, the general yelling and petty bullying bad managers do, the works. Senior management knew about all of this, and they aided and abetted her. Anyways, after being hauled into a meeting with her and a senior manager where she lied about me and did her best to paint me as a lazy and generally terrible worker, I'd had enough. I went to the other senior manager, who shall be called Spineless for reasons you can probably guess, and told him that I couldn't deal with this anymore and I had to be transferred to another department in the store. I had experience in a few other areas which were in high demand, so it wouldn't be hard to find a place for me. It would just be hard to fill my spot in the bakery. especially given that it was late in the year and we were always incredibly busy over the holidays. Spineless said no. Well, actually, he said that he'd see what he could do, but it wasn't likely to happen because I was too important to the bakery to lose. I pointed out that it was so stressful that it was affecting my health and I really couldn't continue. If I had to, I was going to be calling out. He still said no. "We can't do anything unless you have a medical reason." Now see, I knew what he actually meant was that there was no way they were actually doing anything, so I should just shut up about it already. Unfortunately for him, I don't like subtexts like that, and I didn't feel like dealing with the mistreatment anymore. So I sat there for a moment, debating, and decided to give him what he said he needed. See, I have a few medical issues that are annoying, but unless they actually keep me from doing my work, I think it's kind of a cop-out to bring them up. But under the circumstances, management was being completely unreasonable, so cop-outs it was. So I explained that I had an official diagnosis of anxiety, and due to reasons above, I couldn't work under her. Spineless kind of stopped and looked at me, then said, Okay, we'll see what we can do, but we'll need you to at least get through the holidays." I told him I would do my best, but I couldn't handle the constant threats of write-ups, so he would have to keep her from enacting any disciplinary measures against me. He said, sure. I also added that I really didn't want anyone else to know about my anxiety, as I don't like my personal life being spread about. About a month later, something else happens where a bunch of cakes were ruined and I was the last one who touched it. They were someone else's responsibility as soon as I was done with them. The other person just hadn't done their part, and Tiff was trying to get me in trouble however she could. Tiff hands me a write-up to sign. I'm furious, but I carefully write down in the comments section that I have a medical condition interfering with my work, which I had already notified senior management of. Then I insist on having her give me a photocopy of it, which they're supposed to do but often don't. I heard from the supervisor, who was also present, that when she saw what I had written, Tiff had an appropriately shocked Pikachu face and asked if supervisor had known anything about my mysterious medical issue. For once, Spineless had followed directions and not shared my private information with the world. I probably should have just escalated to corporate at this point, but I ended up not. Just wrote a nicely worded letter about how I had requested ADA accommodations because anxiety technically can count as a disability. I had already looked it up. And they had done nothing about it. Stuck copies of the letter along with a write-up and a note from my doctor in Spineless mailbox and in the store manager's mailbox. I should probably point out that by this point, about 4 other people had left the bakery due to medical conditions which were directly related to Tiff. They were legit medical reasons, but either exacerbated by her or used as an excuse to get away from her. So I certainly wasn't the first person to do this. Lo and behold, when you stuff enough legal terms along with relevant meeting recaps and dates into a letter, people do something about it. I had meetings with both the store manager, who insisted he had heard nothing about this, and Spineless, and they offered to get me out immediately, but asked if there was any possible way for me to stay through Christmas, which was about 2 weeks away. I didn't really want to be working a different area when everyone else was already crazy busy with no time to catch me up, so I agreed under the condition that they changed my schedule so that I was not scheduled with Tiff at any point in time. And what do you know? They got me out right after Christmas. So yeah, ask and you shall receive, jerks. Hilarious enough, come February, Tiff went on vacation and the bakery supervisor asked me if there was any way I could come back to help cover, which of course I could do. Figured I might as well stick it in their face that the manager was the problem, not the department. Sadly, they didn't do anything about her until she transferred to a different store where she is no doubt still wreaking havoc. But I escaped with my sanity mostly intact, so it was a win for me. Edit. I was told by someone I should expect to know that it's a HIPAA violation when managers gossip and spread information about a medical issue only revealed to them due to an ADA request and/or discovered through the employee healthcare plan. I certainly could be wrong, but I know that it was a big enough issue that management from top down got a reprimand from corporate. Wouldn't it be nice if employees could team up and vote their boss out of their position? Am I the jerk for calling my niece a spoiled brat and making her cry? I'm 22, female. My sister, who's 28, recently had to move in with me because she's getting a divorce and has nowhere else to stay. She has a daughter who's 7. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment, so it's cramped and tensions are high. My niece is terrible, to be honest. She screams all day long at the top of her lungs. I work from home, so I've tried to get my sister to get her to stop, but she's so depressed from her divorce that she struggles to get out of bed. I've asked my niece to quiet down myself, but she just smirks at me and continues playing and screeching. I've gotten reprimanded at work for it. She also recently broke my laptop. I made it clear to both of them that my niece is not allowed to use my electronics minus the living room TV. Lo and behold, niece got her hands on my laptop to play games on it, spilled milk all over it, and ruined it. I was furious, but my sister paid to replace it, so I let it go. I've tried many times to talk to my sister about this being unacceptable, but I keep getting blown off and told to let her grieve in peace. I do feel bad for her, so I was doing my best to just put up with it. Today I came home from errands to find my niece playing on my Nintendo Switch. Mind you, this was kept in my room, so she must have gone in there and looked for it. Annoyed, I held my hand out and told her to give it over. She ignored me. I called for my sister to take care of her daughter, but she was asleep and told me to leave her alone. So I just grabbed the Switch right from my niece's hands and took it back to my room. She started screaming and crying and literally rolling on the floor, but I ignored her. Well, she decided that was just not acceptable, so she took a Sharpie and drew all over the living room wall. When I saw it, I freaked out. I told her she's a spoiled little brat. She started screaming and crying even worse, which finally woke my sister up. She came out, and instead of being angry and scolding her for her behavior, she scolded me for yelling at her and calling her a spoiled brat. Not my proudest moment, but I yelled at my sister that I was being kind by letting them stay with me rent-free. I was being treated like absolute dirt in return. She wasn't parenting her kid, and I wasn't going to parent her kid for her, so she needed to get her act together and get her daughter under control, or they could find somewhere else to stay. Her daughter was not only getting me in trouble at my job, but she had no respect for my personal belongings, and now I was probably going to lose my security deposit because she doesn't accept the word no. My sister started crying, calling me a jerk, and she and my niece haven't come out of their room. I feel bad now. Am I the jerk? Edit, clarification. Prior to this incident, I have not raised my voice at my niece a single time. I've tried to have talks with her about respecting my home and my things, but she couldn't care less. She also laughed when I cried over my broken laptop. Even then, I did not say a single word to her. I talked to my sister. I have tried to have conversations with my sister about my niece's behavior, only to be guilted and told she was going through a hard time. Niece has always been like this even before the divorce, so I'm sure such a devastating life event has made things even worse for her. I'm going to set a date for them to leave once things calm down a bit. I will also talk to my sister about therapy for the both of them. Not the jerk. Pack up their things and tell them to find another place, then get out. Tell the princess that she's not the first to go through a divorce and won't be the last. Not the jerk. Let them sulk in the one room. Solves a lot of your problems. Her grief over her divorce doesn't absolve her from being a parent. She needs to get her act together. Not the jerk. Don't wait too long to make her leave. Right now, you're risking your job and apartment. I'm sure your neighbors aren't too happy about the screaming. Now the niece is damaging your property and apartment, costing you money. Your sister needs a wake-up call to get her and her daughter help. But you can't be expected to destroy your own life because of her divorce. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for how they handled this or not? Please let us know. Yowza! With a brat like that, no wonder hubby bounced. Oh, that's cold. Am I the jerk for refusing to give my former brother-in-law's stepkids access to my late sister's possessions? My sister Anna passed 8 years ago. She had 2 boys, Luca and Milo, with her husband. The boys were her whole world, and when she realized she wasn't going to make it, she took me aside and told me she wanted me to look after her possessions, which included her small jewelry collection, a couple of very fancy art supplies, think custom paintbrushes kind of thing, some stuffed animals she had had since childhood, and some family photos and baby books and blankets saved that belonged to our family. She told me she knew her husband would move on, and she worried he would allow any future kids of his to have her stuff, instead of her boys once they became of age. She made me promise I would keep them for the boys once they moved out. I made her the promise, and I kept it. He knew about it and was extremely unhappy with Anna's decision. He felt betrayed, and like they should be just as much his as hers, but legally he couldn't do anything. My former brother-in-law remarried 6 years ago and has 2 stepdaughters as well as a biological daughter. Luca and Milo come to my house 1 weekend a month, which was ordered by the courts. And while they are with me, they have admitted to feeling like their dad wants them to treat the 3 girls like their mom's kids. He had asked them to ask me to give the girls the jewelry and stuffed animals. The boys also told me he had shown the girls the photos of the 2 of them with the stuffed animals, and the girls got really jealous. They said they don't want their mom's stuff to go to them. I promised them it would not, and I would give it to them one day. Former brother-in-law's oldest stepdaughter is turning 13 soon, and apparently she wanted my sister's locket or a look-alike. He approached me about it, and I told him no way. He told me I was being selfish, and they are Milo and Luca's sisters, and Anna's memory should be shared with them, and they should feel like they have a guardian angel looking out for them. I told him Anna had not wanted that, and her priority would have always been her kids over kids that he had or took on with someone else. I told him those 3 girls had nothing to do with Anna and were not entitled to any of her possessions. He called me a jerk and told me I was making the girls feel bad, and that even if Anna never met them, I should have accepted them as family and done my best to treat them. He also brought up my not even letting them see the things in person, the stuffed animals especially, and I do remember his younger stepdaughter, who is 10, was upset to not get to see them. It makes me wonder if I'm being too harsh with the kids, but I also don't want them to get attached either because they will never actually get anything from me, and the boys don't consider them sisters, so it's unlikely they will ever give them anything either. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, and wow. How did your sister predict your brother-in-law's future behavior so well? OP. I'm not sure. I never expected her to worry about that stuff, but when she got sick, she did. She would never tell me where it came from either, but I have to wonder if it's how he responded once they learned that she wasn't going to make it. Only jerk here is brother-in-law. Why would the girls even want this stuff if he weren't showing it off, trying to manipulate the situation to get the things? So weird. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. This is exactly why your sister was so concerned. Stand your ground and call him out that this is precisely why his wife didn't trust him and asked you to look after her stuff, and that you will be sticking to that very promise to her. Am I the jerk for sneaking out of the restaurant after my fiancé told me to pay for his and his friend's meal? I, 33 female, have been engaged to my fiancé, male 37, for 5 months. We don't share finances because that's what he wants. I got a raise on my salary. Now I earn 30% more than he does, and I notice that he's been using this to ask me to pay for him and his friends. Whenever I say no, or why should I pay for this, he'd respond with, the 30%, that's why, and act as if the 30% is unfair or that I'm not deserving of it. Several times, he has tricked me into paying for his and his friends' meals by asking me publicly. Let me say that I'm too nice to say no. I hate confrontation, especially when we're at a public place like a restaurant, so I just grin and pay. Last Tuesday, he asked me to join him and his buddies for dinner. I told him from the start I wasn't paying for their food and he shouldn't expect me to. He said he got this and no worries. We got to the restaurant, met his friends, ordered food, and in the middle of the meal, he leaned in and whispered that I would be paying for everything he and his friends ordered. I got so mad, I whispered back, no. But he probably relied on me not causing a scene in public and in front of his friends. He said, you have enough money. You could pay for everyone's food. 30%, remember? I was fuming inside. Instead of reacting negatively and losing my temper, I waited till the bills arrived. They were already split from the start when we first ordered. I paid for mine, then I excused myself to the restroom. I then sneaked out from there, got into my car, and went home. I started getting phone calls from my fiancé, then texts asking where I was. I texted back saying I didn't appreciate how he put me in this situation and basically tricking me into paying for his and his friend's food. I told him I went home and then stopped replying. An hour later, he came and started yelling at me, calling me selfish, irrational, cheapskate, childish for sneaking out, stuff like that, and for leaving him stuck with a bill he could not pay. He had to call his brother for help. We had a loud argument, then he walked out. His friends didn't speak to me on this, but he told me that they're disappointed in my behavior and are telling him to take time and reflect on the type of woman he's going to be married to. Am I the jerk for what I did? Is what he's expecting from me fair or justified? ETA, some info. 1. He said that because the restaurant wasn't expensive, then I could have just paid. 2. He admitted not telling me about it till later, knowing I'd refuse. He still thinks my reaction was childish and unacceptable. Why are you marrying someone who insists that his money is his money, but your money is also his money? Not the jerk. OP. Yes, I don't say a word about how and where he spends his salary. He does intend on dictating how I spend my money sometimes. But now with the raise thing, he's admittedly gotten more aggressive. I keep trying to get to the root of the issue, but to no avail. The root of the issue is that he's selfish and controlling and doesn't respect you. Along with a nice dash of insecurity that he's no longer better than you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her fiancé? Please let us know. Dude sounds like a real jerk, to be honest. Is there like anything good about him? Entitled Karen thinks my parents' land is hers. So a little backstory, as it'll be much needed in this story. My parents live in a gated community and got their house custom built. They purchased the land separately, as originally they were selling it all together, and all they needed was 3 acres, not 5, for the house. So they purchased one plot for the house and the other plot next to it and left it empty for privacy, since if they bought it all together, they would have had to pay double the property tax. Now onto the story. It was about 7 p.m. and 25 minutes until sundown, so I was in my room texting when I saw flashlights on the land we have next to the house. So I told my dad and we both went out there, thinking it was the HOA, as they usually check to see if the trees aren't overgrown. So we went out there and see what we'll know as Karen in this story. Her husband, and her son, which looked to be about 14 to 16, with a BB gun and traps. This is where it starts. Dad: "Hey, can we help you?" Karen: "No, we're just hunting. This is a really nice neighborhood." First off, how did she even get in? Unless she had a code or knew someone who lived here, she couldn't even get in. Dad: "Sorry, but we own this land and you can't hunt here. Also, no animals come through here except squirrels or some occasional deer." Karen: "No, this is public land, and okay, we will set traps for the deer." This is where the Kevin, aka the father, comes in. Kevin: "Is there a problem?" Karen: "They say they own this land, but I doubt that." I went into the house and called the community security. They were obviously trespassing, as even when my dad said it was private-owned land, they set traps. I didn't hear the rest of the conversation, but when the security came, this is what happened. Karen: "This man is bullying my son for hunting." Security: "This is private-owned property. Even if it wasn't, you can't hunt in a community you don't live in." Turns out they were already looking for her, as when they were looking over the community gate footage, they followed behind another car that put in the code. Long story short, they were kicked out of the neighborhood, and if they ever come back without a valid reason, they would get trespassed and the police will be called. The whole time, the son just looked embarrassed and looked like he didn't even want to go hunting. I'll update this when I get the full story on what happened when I went inside. Update: this is what happened when I went inside. Karen's husband: "Even if you do own this land, you obviously don't use it. Come on, we drove an hour to come here, and you seriously can't let us hunt deer?" Dad: "No, I'm sorry, but Karen." "Plus, it'll be good for the community. Less deer is less noise in the middle of the night. It can also stop accidents from the deer getting run over." Dad: "That's up to the community if you can hunt deer, and I might use the land in the future. I don't want dead deer on the land." From what my dad said, they didn't have a car big enough to put the deer meat in, so most likely they were going to leave it there. Karen: "Exactly. By us getting the deer, it'll stop them from being on the land when you build it, and you can just take the deer. It should be easy." Dad: "I'm going to call security if you don't leave. How did you get in here? Do you live here?" Karen's husband: "It's not up to you. We will wait for security." My dad was walking to come in and call security, but he didn't know I went inside to call them. They came around a minute later. Getting revenge by pouring a pint of Coke on a customer. Just to set the scene of how much of a jerk this regular customer was. 2 weeks before this story takes place, this particular customer walked into the restaurant on a Wednesday night with about 40 people. The restaurant was only about 120 covers, and we rarely filled more than 70 of them midweek, so only had 2/3 servers on unless we had large bookings, demanding a table for all of them. Being a regular, the host already knew he was a piece of work, but the horror on her face when he revealed that he didn't have a booking still haunts me to this day. The host calls the general manager over, who's delighted at the opportunity to up our sales for the night, and sits them in an area of the restaurant that's kept closed unless we're particularly busy. Unfortunately, I was the server with the most experience that night, so I ended up serving them along with a few other tables, while the other servers picked up the empty tables in my area. Long story short, they were all generally jerks all night, got far too drunk, made far too much noise, mistreated the runners because they couldn't carry out 40 plates of food in one go, etc. I gave them the best darn service I could have given, only to receive a 25-cent tip. And when the general manager questioned him, he responded, "I'm a regular here, and I never tip because I don't believe in it. So count yourself lucky that you're getting anything." Manager is not happy. Back to the story. Jerk customer returns for his bi-weekly meal with his family, and much to my dismay, ends up sat in my area. I go over to the table and am greeted with, Oh, for goodness sake, not you again. The effort it took not to say, I was thinking the same thing, was unreal. I ignored it and carried on. His wife and daughter, being visibly irritated and embarrassed by his behavior, at least made me feel a little bit better. Orders taken, starters are done, main course is out. I go to do a check back and offer another round of drinks. Along with a few other drinks around the table, his son orders a pint of Coke. When I get back to the table with the drinks, being the jerk that he is, Jerk refuses my polite request to move slightly so that I can pass drinks around and ignores me when I ask if he can pass the drinks over for me, leaving me no option but to lean over the table. Restaurant is pretty cramped. They were in a corner of the room. It's unfortunate, but it happens. I pass the first drink over to his daughter, leaving only the pint of Coke on the tray I'm carefully balancing in my other hand. As I return to standing to get the pint of Coke, I mess up. The pint glass has fallen on my tray in the direction of Jerk customer and literally rained down an entire pint of Coke and ice all over the guy. I'm holding back laughter. His wife and daughter are losing their crap laughing. His son only seems concerned that he isn't getting the pint of Coke he wanted. I look up to see neighboring tables, who I can only presume heard him being a jerk, chuckling. And then in the distance across the room, manager's face has contorted into some bizarre display of both amusement and fear. Now comes the expected bad treatment from angry customer. Manager literally runs to my defense. Jerk customer stands up, picks up his wife, and announces that they are leaving and won't be coming back, much to the dismay of his son, who is literally cramming spaghetti into his mouth as fast as he can. Kid was clearly hungry. Can't really blame him. The guy looks like he's been involved in some kind of Coke and Mentos experiment gone wrong. Manager apologizes profusely and doesn't charge them. Every front-of-house employee in the restaurant thanked me when it became clear in the following weeks that he really wasn't coming back. Surprisingly, the cleanup wasn't that bad. His hair and clothes seemed to have absorbed the majority of the liquid, and it was pretty much just ice on the floor. The neighboring table said as they were leaving, "We'll definitely be coming back, and we hope the entertainment is just as good next time." Manager didn't mention it until I handed in my notice, and all he wanted to say was it was the best thing he's ever witnessed a server do to a customer. Messing up never felt so good.
And huge shout out to our newest official channel member, Tom. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. It really means the world to Reddit Boy and I. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.